As a scientist, take us through the science. We hear about these variants, as they're called. How concerned are you about them?
Look, we're all exhausted and frustrated. We want life to go back to normal, and we're done with COVID, but unfortunately the virus is not done with us. This right now is the calm before the storm. The new variants are spreading, and they're spreading fast. But there is reason to hope if we take action now. We don't have to let things get as bad as they did in the UK, where they've had to go into strict lockdowns once again.
So when you say if we take the action, what is the action beyond what we're doing already? What more needs to be done?
Well, every single American needs to be wearing a mask, and they need to wear it correctly. And I don't care if you're Tom Brady or who you are. You need to be wearing a mask, and you need to wear it correctly over your nose and mouth. We also need to be sticking to our household bubbles. We need to be staying away from groups right now. Things like online shopping to minimize how much we have to go outside. And I know the Biden administration is interested in doing this. The government really needs to be supporting restaurants and bars and gym owners to close indoor business. These are small business owners who should not be forced to choose between following public health guidance and their livelihoods. This is the moment to be learning from the experience of other countries who were hit by the new variants before us, the UK, for example. And we should be taking the fact that the UK variant is spreading across the United States very quickly now as a major red flag and warning sign for what's to come.
As a scientist, are you getting enough data to judge how quickly the variants are spreading across the United States? I've read that, for example, the UK is ahead of the United States in, I think it's genomic testing or genomic mapping.
That's right. So the UK has been much more aggressive in doing genomic surveillance. So that means looking at the genetics of the virus as it mutates. Since the new administration took office, the CDC has increased the volume of genomic surveillance tenfold. So that's a big increase. That may still not be enough to really keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening here, but that's a huge improvement and will allow us to keep a closer eye on how this is unfolding.
And what about re-engineering or modifying the vaccines to make sure that they can accommodate the variants? I mean, do we know how much re-engineering is required, and how long does that take? Is it being done?
Yeah, I want to be clear that the vaccines we have currently do work against the viruses. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines that we have here in the United States do protect against the virus or the variant strains, but we do see a trend towards decreased protection. So that is a signal that we need to be developing updated versions of the vaccine, and scientists and the pharmaceutical companies are already taking a look at this and working on it.
So you would know better than I, but we're doing something north of 1.5 million inoculations a day in this country, as I understand it. What do you think that the hull speed, if I can put it that way, of our inoculation program is? How far up can we get that over what period of time?
Well, I think we're going to see a huge increase in supply availability by June, because by then we're going to have a couple other manufacturers likely to be online as well, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the Novavax vaccine, for example. And so we should by June have enough supply that everybody who wants to get vaccinated can be. I think at that point it's really going to be bottlenecks around distribution and people wanting to be vaccinated. So I do think we'll be able to get to a few million a day by that time.
Let's talk about the schools. It's clearly a very important issue for parents, but also for the economy itself. We hear different stories about how safe the schools are, whether kids should be back in the classroom or not. I think we're going to hear from the CDC later this week, perhaps tomorrow, about what the guidelines were. What is your take, again, as a scientist, as an epidemiologist, about where we are in the schools? Is it safe to send our kids back to school?
What we've seen is kids are actually much safer in school than they are outside of school. And that's because if schools are provided the resources, the masks, the personal protective equipment, they are given the ability to space kids out, put in the right ventilation, kids are actually safer in school. They're supervised, they're asked to wear a mask in school, which may not be the case out in the community or at home. And so for kids, especially kids in the 8th grade and under, that's really the safest place to be. Now, I will say that the variants may change that. We don't know. But at least for now, the science would say that having kids in school as much as possible is the right thing.
What about the teachers? Because we have, in some places at least, some teachers' unions who've really been resisting going back to the classrooms. Chicago, as you know, I think it's been resolved now, but there was a big dispute in Chicago. Are the teachers' unions right? Do they have a point, or are they overreacting?
I understand that there's a lack of trust, and I understand that they may not feel safe going back to the classroom. If the schools are given the right resources, the right supports, it can be done safely, even without doing mass testing or providing vaccination. The basics of masking, social distancing, ventilation, all of that can be done in schools and can work well. I do think there are other trade-offs here at play, especially in school districts where some of the kids are returning to the classroom, some are remaining virtual. That's very hard on educators to juggle both. So I can understand that there are certainly valid concerns around that.
We had a report out that the WHO investigation of the origins of this virus actually are indicating it came from an animal. It did not come from a lab in China. Is that significant for us as we unfold how this develops and therefore what we can do about it?
This is exactly how new emerging viruses emerge, is that they jump from animals into humans. The reason we're seeing this happening more and more is because people are coming into contact with these animal reservoirs more. This is a reflection of changing wildlife habitats driven by climate change, deforestation, and the like. And so as those other processes unfold and worsen, you're going to see more and more of this virus jumping into humans.
Take us out, if you can, and it may be speculation, next year, the year after that. Are we looking at a world in which we get annual inoculations? Is this something somebody said it could be like measles, where you get one when you're a youngster and it serves you through your life? What do you expect ultimately this will play out as?
Yeah, I've actually been one of the people comparing this to measles. I don't think it's going to mutate as quickly as the influenza virus, where you do have to update the vaccine every year. I think this is more likely to be a situation where we may need a one-time update of the vaccine in the fall. I think more likely it will eventually be more like the measles, where once we have everybody pretty much covered with a vaccine, then you're really only playing catch-up with people who are entering the population, which is people being born. So at that point, this would become a childhood vaccination.